Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides, Canada Missing Project, the executive producer of the show, Huck L. Berry, the good girl she is. Oh yes, you're a good girl. And she knows she's important. She prances around here like she's the King Tut of the house. Yeah, good girl. Yeah, she's a good girl. She's a good girl. Take a little nappy now. All right. Well, if you're looking for missing people, you're at the wrong place today. It's a Skinwalker Ranch episode, and it's it's filled with interesting tidbits today. Now, if you're new to me reviewing Skinwalker Ranch, go back and watch the first two this season. I kind of lay out why I'm doing this, my relevance to it, my interest in it, etc. And in Missing 411 National Parks, Washington State, one of the people they use at the ranch all the time, Dave Mason, was there. He's in my movie. He has fantastic equipment. Super smart guy. So, and when I've done Phenomicon, which is their big conference right there in Utah, right next to the ranch, all those guys are there. Very friendly, open. It's a good share of ideas. But let's get into this. This is the June 23rd, 2026 episode, Season 7, Episode 6. At the beginning of Skinwalker Ranch, they talk about Skinwalker Ranch being the epicenter of unusual activity. And I've got to tell you that there were actually other places in the United States that were looked at by Mr. Bigelow before he originally bought Skinwalker Ranch. And there are other places in the United States that have a lot of activity. So, the epicenter, I don't know, that's kind of extreme. It does have a lot of activity, but I could take you to other places that have a lot of activity. Now, they started off this episode with Jan Frank, a GPR expert. And he is the person that put one of his instruments through the borehole, trying to get a reading on what was underneath the mesa. He put it inside of borehole number 1. And then he came back with the data about what happened. And he showed it on a screen. And what it looked like is just a bunch of chaos lines. And he said, this is unbelievable. It's like something underground is interfering with my ability to read what's there. And there's nothing natural in the world that causes that. What? Yeah. There's nothing in the natural world that would cause that. He said the only place he's ever been where he saw something similar to this was around military institutions. Oh. Well, that's interesting. So does that mean there's something military related in that ground? Kind of goes back to what I said a couple weeks ago about what I think is in that ground. They got 150 feet into that hole, and that's when the maximum interference happened. And then they drug the same equipment across the top of the mesa going downhill. And it says, same interference, same thing. When he explained that nothing in the natural world would cause it, and he's only seen it around military bases, the quote that Travis gave was, "This is frigging intriguing." And then Jan explained that he'd come up with something to overcome the interference, he thought. And he called it coded radar. And he'd be back in 2 weeks utilizing this new tool to go back after what was there. Then they went back up to the top of the mesa where they were drilling down, trying to get at the items inside the mesa 33 feet down. Well, they got down 28 feet with a 4-foot diameter hole. 33 feet is the target. And they said it would take a majority of the day to get down there. But remember, in that mesa, they found those little chips that they thought were ceramic and they thought may have been manufactured. And remember the last couple of weeks, I told you that they've been honing in on some radiation issues. So if they had radiation issues in the past, you think that that would be right there in the forefront of their mind anytime that they were drilling in a new area, at least in my humble opinion. Well, the progress of the drill, they got down to 32.5 feet in the hole, and they said that they were hitting something very hard. What they did is they were using a 4-foot bit. They went down to a smaller bit, looked like it was maybe 18 inches max, and went down and it would drill in, and as it was drilling, whatever it was drilling would come up the drill bit. Then they would pull it out and they would drop it on the ground. Well, as they pulled it out and they dropped it on the ground, everyone kind of hovered around it right away, and nobody had any kind of radiation detector on them that was obvious. Nobody checked it that I could see. I don't understand that behavior. And I mean, these guys are smart. I'm sure, Thomas and Travis have been victimized by radiation in the past, and Thomas was right on it. So then they went into the first break. After the break, they said in 2021 they found metal flakes in the drilling spores when they were going up into the mesa. They said that they were used, or very similar to what's used in aerospace. The top of the mesa, they pulled out, they used a different drill, went down and pulled out, it looked like something 18 inches in diameter approximately, pulled it out and put it on the ground. Pulled the drill away and it was still standing there. Somebody said, oh, it's almost like cement, and the archaeologist there said, no, it's just hard sandstone. Well, they used a high-powered magnet and they moved it around, and they got these little flecks of metal on the magnet. They didn't show anything they didn't show that under a microscope. They never ID'd the metal. And they really didn't say much about it other than whatever it is still down there. Travis said for sure it was not mud, but metal fragments. And he said those were important. They believed they were hitting the object while it was down there. And then they were recording as this drill was spinning and hitting something down there. It reminded you, and I think they said it as well, to me it sounded like a metal fan hitting the protective coating on the outside of a fan so you don't stick your fingers in. So those kind of grate things, that's what it sounded like. It wasn't a consistent whine, it was a ba-ba-ba-ba-ba around as the drill spun around. And it was shaking the drill head. Eric piped up and said, hey, let's stop. He didn't want to damage anything because he knew the owner of the property didn't want to damage anything. They wanted to make sure that they could take this piece out. The only thing they really got were those shavings of metal and that core piece of hard sandstone that was very dense. They passed the 33-foot mark where that item should have been, and they dug all the way down to 38 feet, and they didn't pull anything up. No. They then went back to the control room, got Brandon, the owner, on CCTV, told him what happened, and he said, well, did we miss the mark? Travis said, we've drilled boreholes on each side of this thing. We supposedly knew where it was. He goes, now we'll drill right on top of it somehow. So here's the puzzling part to me. This is really expensive, folks. Yeah. A lot of people involved. Film crews, people. To think that they were drilling by guess, that dog don't hunt. They were drilling exactly where this thing should have been. And then when they drill, even the driller said, it sounds like we're hitting something metal. Yet when they bypass it, nothing metal was there. That's why it's bizarre. And I heard it. It sounded like it was hitting metal. If the GPR said that the item there was there, and they pulled out ceramics and they pulled out metal, and the drill sounded like it was hitting something metallic, where did it go? Right? But this is like the game that the ranch plays with science. Which is why I was against what they were doing on the top of the mesa. So when I was young, my dad owned, while he was a fireman, he and his partner owned a pool contracting business. I was around big dozers all the time, digging swimming pools. I know that they could dig through that sandstone like soup, and they could get down to 33 feet really quick. So I don't understand why they just don't take up a big dozer and drill. I really don't get it. And I think that wouldn't hurt anything, especially if you were using metal detectors as you were pulling out each layer to make sure that as you got closer, you were just more careful. And some of these pieces that are in the mesa are big. Well, again, there was no radiation detecting. I thought it was odd. The whole idea behind drilling on the top of the mesa was that they had the location identified. Now, I'm not saying they were wrong. I'm saying something else weird is going on. So down below the mesa, in the meadow, they have something called the triangle. And the triangle is this, it's like where three roads come together and they make a triangle on the ground, and there's some weird anomalies going on in that area up in the sky. In fact, the center of the bubble is in the triangle. In the past, they put drones up above there, and they're trying to learn more about the center of the bubble and trying to map out where that center point is, how high it goes, does it have density to it, how does that center area react to things that are there. So they brought back this drone company that they've used in the past. These guys are good, and it's important to understand what they do. So they have 100, 200 drones. They program them, and they do things in the sky at baseball games, at different events that are unbelievable, beautiful. And it all has to do with the programming of the drone to make it act in unison with the other drones. if one or two drones failed in their presentation, they would look like crap. That's why it never happens. Well, at the ranch, things happen. So they bring in 100 drones and they put them on the ground in a 10 by 10 format. They look like they're maybe 5 or 6 feet apart, perfectly symmetrical 10 by 10. And then they had cameras up all the way around, all different kinds. And then an employee of the drone company was going to use what was called an FPV drone, take it up outside of the drone formation so that they could watch how the drones reacted as they went up in elevation, which was a critical part. Before they started, they programmed the 4 points of the drone, the 4 outer points of that 10 by 10 drone. And they just were going to send them up and see what they would do if there was interference, etc. So they got them up to 60 feet to just make sure that they were all tracking okay. And once you know it, 2 of the drones just kind of went off on their own towards the mesa. And Travis was saying, hey, you better call them back because they're going to crash right into the mesa. They weren't acting as they should have been. They were just acting on their own. They said that there was a GPS anomaly. So other drones they've used in the past, as they take off from the ground and they go up into the sky, they give out GPS readings. In the past, some of those drones have showed GPS readings underground, even though it's 500 feet in the sky. That's happened many, many times. Well, the 2 of them came back, 2 eventually came back, but they acted so completely irrational and didn't follow the programming. The drone owners were a little flustered. So the plan was to have a primary flight at night. 100 drones, all lit up. You could easily see them, easily follow them. Have the FPV drone go up next to them and follow them. So they did that. 100 drones go up. Perfect alignment up to about 500 feet, except one drone never took off. Not normal. So the drones in flight seemed to be moving slightly side to side. Then as they got up to about 700 to 800 feet, they started doing a little circular rotation, very small, in their little quadrant that they were on. Not normal. It was weird because many people commented that it was almost like something else was controlling them. There was no wind, so wind couldn't have been pushing them back and forth. One drone didn't launch, like I said, but about 3 minutes after the 100 drones took off, the FPV drone was following them. The operator said, I just lost everything. Crashed into the ground. That was not normal. This guy was frustrated as heck. He's like an optimum expert. He goes, this doesn't happen. Well, again, at 950, they were going to take him up to 1,000 feet because they wanted to see if the bubble had this anomaly up to 1,000 feet. And at 950, the drones were acting odd. Then they went down to 600 feet. Everything stabilized. Once on the ground, this was really interesting. All 100 drones had what looked like maybe a 18-inch by 18-inch piece of carpet or linen or something that they land on. And hey, I've worked drones for the last 8 years filming. drones land, when you send a message to them to come back, they land in the same spot that they left from. These drones came back, and some of them were half off the carpet. And the operator said, that's not normal. Means that there was some kind of magnetic or electrical interference. And they said that mean magnetic interference over grass fields should not be occurring. They said the only time they ever have this kind of interference is if they're working around metal, if they're in a parking garage, something like that. They said it should be centered on the mat. Then Travis said, well, there's obviously a giant magnetic anomaly at 800 to 1,000 feet. Later that night, they relaunched for a second time. This time, a new FPV takes off. Same operator. Kind of follows the drones as they're taking off. Same thing. After just a couple minutes, some type of interference. The FPV drone operator loses all control, crashes right down onto the ground. Lost the feed. This time 100 drones launched instead of 99. The FPV operator said the only way to lose a connection like the last 2 times he's lost his was for that drone to go behind a mountain. That's what he said. Well, it didn't go behind a mountain and we could all see it. The formation was good above the triangle to 600 feet. Started to wiggle more as it got to 900 feet, with many of those drones moving in that little circle. The operator said GPS anomalies and magnetic interference are not normal in this topography that they were in. All the drones landed safely. The vast majority were off their mats. And then they said that they would meet the next day in the control room and discuss the data. Travis seemed to be pretty happy with what they found. The drones, the operator said drones approaching 750 to 1,000 feet had magnetic interference. And the drones actually measured the magnetic interference as they went up in elevation. And many of these drones showed that they had this interference. Not normal. As I'm watching this, I thought to myself, okay, I've got to be a little bit more critical about this. So, did you watch the Colm Kelleher interview I did? Yeah, it's about 1 hour and 5 minutes long. It's right here on the channel. It's one or two videos before this one. If you haven't seen it, I think it's the best interview I've ever done. And it wasn't me, it was him. But fascinating. He was the head investigator at Skinwalker Ranch under Bigelow. So one of the things that Colm and I talked about, and we've talked about this before many times, is consciousness. And really what is happening in our world and at Skinwalker Ranch that deals with consciousness. An example. We hear sometimes that people walk into an area in the woods and they feel extreme fear. Why are you feeling that? Is that an entity imparting that in your head? And if they have the ability to impart that in your mind, do they have the ability to control the direction you take in your research? So let's think about this for a second. When they're talking about the drones and magnetic interference, science only knows what they know, only knows what their instruments tell them. But what if the intention by this entity has nothing to do with interfering with it magnetically. It's just a byproduct of what they did, how they moved. I don't hear them talking about that very much. In fact, I don't hear them talking about consciousness much at all amongst this group. But I do know that the team that was on there beforehand was really into this. And they were really tried to be conscious about how they may be affected in their work by what is there at the ranch. Just food for thought, folks. The FPV drone crashed 2 times. So why would it be targeted? Now this I thought about for a long time. The object of that FPV drone was to come up to elevation where those 100 drones were at, flying, and watch and see the behavior of the drone and see if there was anything around it. So did the entity not want that drone to see what was going on around these drones? I don't know. But why target that one drone? Drone data showed something large, almost 250 feet thick, at between 750 and 1,000 feet, that magnetic anomaly. Travis was ecstatic because he in his mind said that we've proven that there's a giant magnetic anomaly in the center of the bubble, and that magnetic field had structure. That was his whole point. And he goes, we proved it. They talked to the drone guys about coming back again, and this time trying to take the drones to 2,000 feet. There was some talk that the FAA may not allow them to do that, and the drone owner said, you know, we've had some luck with the FAA in the past getting around some of their regulations. He goes, let me talk to them again, see what I can find out. Maybe we can, they didn't say this, but in the past, maybe they could get the airspace above the ranch restricted for a short period of time while they do this test. Just thinking. And then Cameron talked and said, you know, we need to keep pushing the limits. Again, this is not a diss on the researchers that are there. I think they're top notch. I wouldn't pick anybody different. They would be my choice. But did you notice that the other researchers that are there, other than Travis and Eric and Thomas, the other researchers that are there, they hardly say anything. I think that's odd. I'm sorry, if I was there, I'd be speaking up. I may be looking stupid, but I'd be talking. Now, maybe these guys are saying things and it's cut out by the director. I don't know. And the editor, I don't know. But I do believe that it would be fascinating to them to extend a hand to Colm Kelleher and ask him if he would come out and allow his team, their team, to interview him. I mean, you don't want to rebuild an empire that's already been built. Why repeat what Bigelow's already done? Maybe he will talk to them. I don't know. I have no idea. But I guarantee if I was them, I would ask. And then there are a series of physicists that have worked at the top ends of physics and theoretical physics. Why not invite them out? One new physicist a week. Get some new blood in. Ask them their theories. And I'm sure they would do this, but as you sit down and you interview them, if they say something disparaging, they can always cut it out. If they're demeaning, cut it out. But I doubt that they would be. And just maybe they would have a breakthrough idea. I'm one of these guys that I admit what I don't know. The best example is American Sasquatch. I brought in the best researchers I knew in the world. And they relayed to you what they thought about what was happening. The researcher who thinks they know it all, they're a fool. And if you surround yourself with really smart people, really good things are going to happen. I think at the ranch right now, they've got really smart people. But you can't expect people year after year, week after week, to develop new ideas and come up with new angles. It just won't happen. So, extend yourself. I don't think it makes those researchers look weak. I think that makes them look strong. This is just my humble opinion. Again, I wouldn't change anything about the staff. I think it's great, but rotate some new blood through there and get the new blood to speak up. Don't sit there. Just a thought. I really appreciate you being here. Really do. And I will continue with these. And maybe, just maybe, I'll have something new to report from you about the ranch and its goings on there next week. In the meantime, kindness. Kindness is really the whole key to life. I wake up every day, come downstairs. I don't have one fleeting thought about treating Huck, like, be mean to her. Love, caring. We should extend that to people. When you get in your car and you go out into the community, just think about making one person's day, one person you see that day, just one, super special. Change their day. Be safe, be kind. Check out our website, missing411.com. Also, watch our movies, all with Missing 411 on Tubi.com, Tubi. Our new movies, Missing 411 National Parks, Washington State, and American Sasquatch are both on Amazon.com. Paulides out.